The ANC's Eastern Cape elective conference is tonight facing an urgent legal challenge. Some members have approached the High Court in East London to try and block the participation of some branches from the Dr. W.B. Rubusana region. Let's talk more about this with political analyst Ongama Mtika, who's been watching developments around the Eastern Cape conference with us from yesterday. Ongama, welcome back. So, as things stand, we're now waiting to hear judgment on this urgent application to block some of these branches from the region participating. How much do you think that could possibly sway the way in which voting happens should the interdict be granted?
Sure. So I think it's interesting that the conference has progressed significantly. The political report has been done by the Premier, and also there seems to be a preliminary report of credentials that's generally accepted, save for this contestation over the branches. And it seems like it's mainly the W.B. Rubusana ones that are a challenge. It's interesting that the complainants or the applicants are asking the entire region not to participate, as I was following matters. And I think this is the point that the defense lawyer was pointing to, that in fact there doesn't need to be the entire region that doesn't participate, but specific branches where some irregularities were acknowledged. Obviously, the reason why there's so much contestation about this is that in true form, to this not being too much of a democracy with many dependencies and people's votes not known, it is known which group they are supporting. The view is that these are pro-Mabuyane branches that are a concern here, and that's why the Ongama Mtika aligned grouping are challenging it. And if obviously, if granted, it puts them in good stead, at least as far as they see things. And if not, obviously that benefits the Mabuyane grouping.
So we're waiting for, of course, the legal outcome of all of this to happen. But while the conference is going on, you had today the three challenges for the position of chairperson, that is Oscar Mabuyane, Babalo Matikizela, and Mlibo Kobashiane, who walked hand in hand, so to speak, coming out of one of the earlier meetings, trying again to try and inspire this sense of unity in the party. But as a recurring theme in the ANC at this point, it appears that's simply not going to hold.
Well, it will be interesting. I mean, it's not uncommon for a hotly contested conference to have the outcome that we saw in Nazareth, or in fact, if we go to Mpumalanga, to have an outcome where, well, I guess in Mpumalanga you wouldn't fit this description, but where you find that across the slates, the delegates choose. And if that happens, it would be a function of some horse trading that would have been done among these leaders. There's been talks of serious horse trading. The body language of the leaders, as you were saying earlier, suggests that, and in fact they have said in verbatim that they're not opposed fundamentally to it, but the fact that there would even be a challenge in court does suggest that if there's ever going to be some negotiation, each of the parties want to keep their position of relative strength so that throughout the period, it's one thing when you negotiate from a position of strength, and it's quite another when you are perceived by your opponent to be weak, and therefore you are likely going to leave that negotiation table with not much in terms of significant wins.
Let's go back to the issue of the allegations in this region, in the branches where the initial court case was brought. There were allegations at the time that there had been instances allegedly where deceased people were on some of the lists. People who don't live in the region also apparently appeared on some of these lists. People who were sick and did not attend meetings were added, and that is part of why the likes of Ondela Sokomani alleged that there had been an abuse of the process, as it were, a manipulation of the branch process. Why has the ANC still not perfected the running of the electoral process from branch level to when ultimately the regional, provincial and national conference sits? Because it's not a new allegation, so to speak.
Absolutely, and there's always room to falter an ANC conference around on the issue of processes. Here is a challenge, the allegation that they were making. Indeed, the ANC has automated the membership, which allows for a lot more certainty in terms of people claiming to be members in good standing and, in fact, the verification thereof. The argument, however, or the allegations made were that there was collusion between the region or province and somebody sitting at Luthuli House who was facilitating this process of registering people who should not be registered as members in good standing. Now, it's interesting whether, I can't recall what the outcome of that case was, but it's something that is very much characteristic of ANC processes. Yes, indeed, this is what happens when you build institutions. You fix one thing, you go out and test it, and some gaps are manifest in practice, and then you go back to the drawing board to improve things. I hope that before it's too late for them as a party, they are going to move to a stage where there's no longer control by gatekeepers of who participates in ANC conferences. The Eastern Cape in the 2017 conference proposed that the entire rank and file membership must vote in order so that you could deal with this power of gatekeepers. And it's very sad that they didn't follow through on that, because we would be now dealing with a situation where power truly would be lying with the branch.
And Sokomani was part of this application trying to interdict the participation of the Rubusana region, said to the Mail and Guardian, I think it was last month in April, mid-April, roundabout, when he gave that interview, he was talking about how he felt his life had been put in danger or threatened somewhat since they exposed this alleged manipulation of branch processes. Just this week, we started with the murders of 2 ANC members. Yes, there's not been a confirmed political motive, but how concerned should we be about the level of tension politically in the ANC at the moment and the potential, indeed, for violence?
Yeah, so the ANC has reframed political office to be a conduit of a resource acquisition and distribution. I think it's Mr. Joseph in writing about Nigeria, a concept he called prebendalism, which is a similar concept used by, in the pastoral space, where somebody benefits from the office they occupy by virtue of occupying that office. So what they have done in recent years is to consolidate the economic power that's associated with public office. So this prebendalism increases the stakes of contesting power, and as such, it's not surprising that even people's lives are price tags for acquiring office. And it is a sad situation, but it's part of the moral degeneration that happens when people begin to focus too much attention on what an office enables, rather than enables by way of private accumulation, rather than how it positions one to serve society.
I want to go back to the 3 main candidates for the role of chairperson, Oscar Mabuyane, Babalo Madigizela, and Mlibo Koboshiane. Some suggestions today that he may actually end up with his slate as the kingmakers between the other 2, because they have or hold the majority of delegate support going into this conference. But looking at all 3, do either of them possess what the Eastern Cape government and the ANC as a party needs in order to come out of the various crises of the last 20 years?
My view is that ANC processes cannot deliver the best in a particular geographic territory. So in the Eastern Cape, they can't, because a lot of people don't have patience to sit through all the manipulation that happens. So it's not the best of what's available in the Eastern Cape. Are there among them people who have potential? I think each of them has got different strengths. Oscar Mabuyane in particular has been able to play into the investment promotion space and be able to actually help in that space. And I think that's partly due to the fact that his pathway into government started with the economic development and finance portfolio. Libo Koboshiane, I think he was compromised by the fact that people who hold COCTA ministries throughout the country for the ANC get generally beholden by party political imperatives rather than local government. But in agriculture, he was very phenomenal, and I think his legacy remains there in terms of the programs of development that remain there. Babalo, for me, has been helpful in turning the Department of Public Works, especially increasing revenue from the state from its own properties. However, all of these candidates, their anxieties about, in fact, the two, Babalo and Oscar, anxieties about being, kings of patronage networks that sometimes are not to the best interest of proper governance. There hasn't been much by way of tainting or acts of disrepute that Mlibo Koboshiane has been faced with. Otherwise, he's got charisma, and but he's not, the favorite in this conference by way of numbers.
One more thing, Ongama, in 30 seconds. Where are the women in the ANC in the Eastern Cape, and why does no one want a woman to be chair? 3 men in 2022?
Absolutely. Tembekile, women have got themselves to blame. If you look at the demographics of who are the delegates at the conference, it's clear that if they were assertive enough, they could actually have a significant position or even that of chairperson. However, they've got this tendency of crying about the outcome post facto and not, in fact, using their power when it matters most to ensure that they've got a female candidate. So there's no seriousness in focusing on women leadership in the ANC.